Hi folks, welcome back. Exciting one today. Going to be fitting these Bridgestone Battlax Adventurecross AX41 tyres to my Interceptor 650. They're a pretty aggressive tread pattern, as you will see. More aggressive than you would think this bike would require, and I'm sure they are. They're a 50-50 pattern, so 50% on-road, 50% off-road. Trying to find these types of tyres in sizes and fitments to suit this bike's very difficult, with it having a 18-inch front wheel. Most knobbly front tyres, there's more common sizes are a 19-inch front, so it would have made it a lot easier if we'd have had a 19-inch front rim. But these are new sizes. This is the same size as the factory front one. This one is the same width, but I've gone up 10% on the section height, so it is a bit taller than the current one. It's the closest one I could get in this style to suit the rim. You can get a narrow one, a 120, but it's not advised to go on our rims, which are a 3.5-inch rim. Today I'm just going to be fitting them. I have got a balancer here, but I've not got the weights, so I'm just going to fit them today, see how they look, check that I'm happy with them, let them bed in a little bit, and then I'll balance them in another video. So if you want to see what they look like and what I think to them when fitted, and want to see how I fit them, stay tuned, and I'll see you when they're done. Before we dive into the actual fitting, I'll just go through some of the tools I use, or all the tools I use in the fitting of the tyres. So that was a valve core remover. Just comparing it here with the valve puller. The valve puller used to have a valve core remover, but I damaged it, so I've just filed it off. The valve puller is used just to help save your fingers a bit in locating the valve from inside the wheel into the tyre, and not to really pull on, but just to help guide it through. These are Motion Pro Bead Pro double-ended levers. They act as tyre levers and a bead breaker. You'll see these in the video. First time I've actually used them. I've used various other methods for breaking the bead, but these are by far the easiest. This is my trusty and very well used double-ended tyre spoon and ring spanner. It's a 24mm ring spanner on the end, which suits both axle nuts on the Interceptor. These are rim shields to help protect your rim when levering off. I don't necessarily use them all the way around, but particularly when taking the first bites out of the tyre, or using a big lever like this, which is made of steel. I'll put links in the description below to all these items. They're mainly Motion Pro items, which I'm very happy with, and this Bozzetti tyre lever, but I'll put links below. So straight into the tyre fitting. I'm just here removing the valve core, so letting the air out of the tyre. You then want to put some of your chosen lubricant around the bead to help slip it off the bead with the tyre tools. I'm using ATF 50 here. You can use a whole range of things. People use all sorts of different tips and tricks. Just have a bit of a Google of that. I'm using this because I don't want any corrosion on the rim. There are pros and cons. I won't go into detail of that now. Now take your time, work your way around with your chosen method of breaking the bead. You can just try with a tyre lever if you don't have these bead buddies. You can use a side stand, you can use various methods, you can use quick clamps, G clamps, a whole range of stuff. But whichever way you choose, work your way around, carefully ease it off, then flip the wheel over and do the same on the other side. You'll find that the other side is most likely easier because you've already taken a lot of tension out of the tyre, and you need to make sure that it's off the edge of the rim, so off the bead, and it slips down into the gully in the middle of the wheel. This takes the tension off all the way around, and that's one of the main things when taking the tyre off or fitting it. You need to make sure that it stays centred and it doesn't work back up on the bead. If it does, that makes everything a lot harder, so you need to use your knees or clamps or whatever you need to keep it down in the trough, to make everything that much easier. Now grab your rim shield and take the first main bite out of the tyre. Don't stick your lever in too far because you want to not pinch your tube. You may notice here I've skipped forward a day. I'm working on the front tyre. The back one was a real pain, and I did manage to pinch the tube on that one. Rushing trying to film it, first time I've ever pinched a tube, so very disappointed in myself, but it happens. So back to this one, work your way around. Every sort of 2 to 3 inches take a bite out. You'll notice that where the bead comes out of the trough and towards the edge of the rim, there's a little area where you can just sneak in with your tyre lever and pick it up. It's usually about 2 to 3 inches along, depending on the width of the rims. So work your way around. As you get around to the end, you'll find it gets a bit easier. I don't use a rim shield all the way around. Once it gets a bit easier, using this alloy lever, it doesn't leave a mark, so you're okay with that. Now carefully work your way around, pulling out the tube. Try not to pinch it, damage it, stretch it too much. Pop that to one side. If you're reusing it, if you've done a lot of miles, you probably want to replace it. Now this is the tricky bit. Take the tyre off from the same side you lifted the first bead, engage the rim shield and the big tyre lever here to get it to this point. Bigger and heavier you are, the easier you'll find that to put weight down on the tyre to get it to fold and pop out like that. Now you want to orientate the tyre the correct way around, so look for your rotation mark. I'm also looking for the dot on the tyre, which is led to believe is the lightest point of the tyre, which you put next to the valve stem to try and aid with balancing. There's a green dot on this and there were red dots on the factory tyres. Then put plenty of lube on the first bead once you've got your orientation correct. You'll find popping the wheel in shouldn't be that difficult here. The tyre's nice and warm. I've had it in the sun to aid fitting, which was one of my mistakes the first time around. Largely get it in most of the way just using your hands, and then finally just pop it over the bead using a lever. Once that's all done, you want to put your inner tube back in, so flip the wheel over so you've got the gap where you can squeeze it in. Feed it in carefully all the way around with your valve obviously located next to the hole so you can get it through, and this is where you'll use the valve puller. If you've got one, it just helps save your knuckles a little bit. It is a bit fiddly just to get it to insert, but if you've got that tin, it just makes it that bit easier to locate and make sure it comes through in the right position. Now in this next shot I'm just adding some talcum powder to the tyre. It just stops the tube chafing, sticking to the inside of the tyre. Should have done this first. Just make sure that's all the way round. Best putting that in before you pop it on the rim, but I forgot, so just doing it there. Now reinsert your valve core and put your valve nut on to stop losing your valve again, and you want to put a little bit of pressure into the tube, only a couple of squirts, and then it just helps get it back out of the way, seat it into the tyre, and then release most of that pressure, so you just leave it a little bit sort of soft and squishy, just so it doesn't interfere when you pop in the next or final bead onto the rim. So again here, applying plenty of lube. Lube is your key, along with keeping it down in the channel. So make sure here you engage your knees. Your knees are your best friend. Either that or use clamps, as I mentioned earlier, to keep it down in the centre of the channel. So work your way around carefully, a little bit at a time. Don't put your lever in too far to risk pinching your tube, and this is where you want to be very careful not to pinch your tube. Obviously if you pinch your tube, you've got to start again. Once you get near the end, you want to remove your rim shield so you don't trap it in place, and you need to do the final couple of bites or final bite without that in place. Like I say, with the alloy lever, you shouldn't mark your rim anyway if you take care. Once you've got your bead in on both sides, just check it out, have a quick look around, make sure everything looks okay, and then add plenty of lube to both beads. This will ensure it pops up onto the bead when you air it up. To aid getting it seated on the bead, in addition to the lubricant, I remove the valve core again just so you can rush in plenty of air. Obviously if you're using a hand pump or something, you'll want to leave the valve core in place. You'll note that this one came up onto the bead nice and easy. I was using a pre-warmed tyre and plenty of lubricant, did everything correctly. The back one was a lot harder. I think the tyre itself was a lot stiffer, but it wasn't also pre-warmed, and that took a lot of getting to come up onto the bead. It took probably 6 airs up and down and lots of lubricant and patience and banging the tyre around, and also a lot of pressure to get the back one to seat. The back one was also more spectacular when it did seat, came onto the bead with 2 large bangs. That's it, both tyres done and refitted on the bike. You want to just put the pressure in that you want to run them at now, and this is what it looks like all fitted. I'm very happy with the looks of the bike. Obviously the riding, other than a little bit of off-road that you'll see in a minute, will have to wait. These tyres are made for large adventure bikes though, so bikes many of which are heavier than this one, so I'm not expecting any on or off-road problems with it. Videos I've seen, the reviews I've read, they do run well on these big adventure bikes, so should be more than adequate on this little Royal Enfield. So that's all folks. If you've got any questions or comments or would like to see anything in more detail, then please comment below, and if you like the video please give it a thumbs up and make sure you hit the notifications button. Take care out there, and hope you're all keeping safe and well.